Hey there, I'm Debra and Clement, and today I want to talk about Venus retrograde in Gemini, what it means for, well, everyone in general, what it means for the USA. There are a few interesting aspects that I just want to bring attention to, but of course, most of all, what is it going to mean for you? So, the basics. Every 18 months, roughly, Venus stations retrograde and backpedals through a sign for roughly 40 days, about 6 weeks. Now, today, Venus stationed retrograde in the sign of Gemini, stationed retrograde at 21 degrees 15 minutes, and it's going to continue to backpedal through the sign of the Twins until finally on June 25th, it's going to stop, station direct at 5 degrees 20 minutes Gemini, and keep on going. Now, like all retrograde transits, right? We say that the energy is turned inward so that it is best used, we say, introspectively. And what does that mean, really? It means that we're going to look within, right? We're going to look within, we're going to review certain areas. But because Venus, Venus is connected to values, a lot of it's going to be really value-based. Now, on some level, right, we're all going to be looking at something. And I'll get into the more specifics for your sign just a little bit later on. But what I do want to point out is that while this particular cycle is great for the reflection, and it's really great for making decisions, it's really best not to act on those decisions or make those decisions until after Venus has gone direct. Now, as it happens, what does Venus rule? Venus rules, well, it rules beauty, it rules relationships, and our values, right? Money, of course. And when we talk about the values, though, I do want to say Venus values, it's also our priorities. Who and what, right? Who and what means the most to us or matters the most to us. Now, certainly Venus is the ruler of, well, material. Let's just say material, I like that, material possessions, and that'll include money. So when Venus is retrograde during this period, generally speaking, just going to go to 11 relationships here for a moment, it's common. It's common to hear news about an old flame. You might run into an old flame, something could be rekindled, or you just might hear some news about them. Now, in terms of relationships and Venus retrograde, I've never believed, oh, you get married during Venus retrograde, it's doomed. If I'm picking a wedding date for somebody, I do try to avoid it. But the reality is, the only thing that's going to doom a relationship, quite frankly, are the people involved in it. And some relationships are fated. They are meant to happen. And there is a karmic energy, karmic side to Venus retrograde. So if you meet someone during a Venus retrograde cycle, or maybe you could think back and think, oh God, I met that person, and look back and think, did you learn something from it? Was it a pattern that was repeated? And maybe at that point you ended it, you recognized it, and you said, hey, I'm done with this kind of crap. So there is that karmic, side to it. So if you meet somebody, do not take an attitude of, oh my God, this can never, this is never happening, this is never going anywhere. Again, it has a purpose, and it could last. Now, if you're in a relationship when Venus is retrograde, sometimes kind of common, if you become a little bit disenchanted, you sort of see, hate to say the worst in people, but you may notice the not so wonderful qualities. And again, I'm going to say, sure, note them, address them. But if you're going to take any type of a drastic action, just wait until this energy is past, consider it again, and then make your decision. So overall, Venus retrograde is it's an excellent time to review and evaluate the true worth of your relationships, all right, and as well as the possessions in our life and material possessions. So why? Well, honestly, so when it comes to relationships and possessions, we can get rid of the ones that waste our time, waste our energy, does not do us any good. And on another note, on material things, it's a great time to go through your closet, right? Get rid of the clothes that you haven't worn in years, the ones that, look, let's be honest, they're never going to fit us again. Go through the junk drawer, clear it out. Now, Venus also rules self-esteem, right? How much we value ourselves. And so one thing, and I think this is one of the most, important uses or best uses of Venus retrograde, is take time to look at your life and consider, is there anything or anyone who diminishes you? Anyone who makes you feel less than or insecure? And if there is, take some action about it. Now, Venus rules beauty, right? And we always say it's a well-established astrological rule. Avoid making changes in your appearance, right? Don't try a new hairstyle, a new hair color, or cosmetic surgery, or Botox, or whatever it may be. Now, to be quite honest with you, given the current situation in most cities, trying a new hairstyle, a new hair color is not even going to be an option. But if it is for you, because Venus is retrograde till June 25th, so hopefully some of you will be, opening up and be able to do that. Hope springs eternal here in New York. But if you're able to, we do say, wait. And it's not because it's going to be such a disaster. It's really about value. And so what happens is you think it's going to be great. You think you're going to love it. And then it's like, it's not so hot. Now, Venus, planetary ruler of the second house, right? So Venus is the queen of cash. And so during this time, we say avoid, or be very careful, but avoid financial investments, and also making purchases, luxury purchases, or even just a big ticket item. If it's not necessary, put it off. Okay, just put it off. And again, it's not so much that if you buy something, it's going to be defective. It's more along the line of, after you get it, it's just either you don't value it as much, or time goes by, you think, it really just wasn't worth that money. It just wasn't worth the investment. All right. So again, if it's expensive and it's not necessary, if you can, please just honestly put it off. So Venus also, let's talk about the money, right? Because Venus rules money and our savings account, our personal income, our salary. So in normal circumstances, it'd be time to review our relationship with money. Is it a friend? Is it a fair weather friend? Is it, does it frustrate us? And so given the current circumstances, again, it's going to be in a bigger focus, higher focus because of COVID-19, because of obviously, right, the layoffs and everything that's going on. There's a lot of questions, insecurity for a lot of people who are even still working. Those who are working, are they going to come back? So there's going to be a lot more reflection in terms of values, in terms of the money, okay, in general, in the possessions, but also looking critically at how we spend, at our budgets, because even if you're working, it's just a time, right? It's a time of really, I hate to say financial or economic insecurity, certainly as a nation, and seriously in the globe as well. So Venus, now, besides, or I should say because Venus rules values, right? It rules worth. And it's retrograding in Gemini. And Gemini is a very social sign. It's a curious sign. It's a restless sign. Most of all, though, Gemini is an analytical sign, right? And here it is. Gemini actually is a rule of the third house. It rules domestic news. So I think it's interesting that this particular Venus retrograde cycle is occurring just as many states, right, and cities are beginning to slowly ease, some, more slowly than others, ease their lockdown restrictions. People are starting to maybe go back to work, being able to earn some money, in some areas, as I say, right, get a haircut, go out to a restaurant. And in the USA, and that's where I want to go for a moment, Venus's station retrograde is significant. And so I just want to comment briefly on that, and then we're going to talk about you. So just to start with, I use the Sibley chart, and that's the horoscope for the United States that has Sagittarius rising. So using that chart, Venus just stationed retrograde in the nation's 7th house. Now, Venus, certainly we do think of it as a peaceful planet, right? And it's balance and fairness. But the other side of Venus, because it rules the 7th house in the natural horoscope, there is a little bit of an adversarial side to it. And I just want to mention that because 7th house also rules open enemies. Now, in the nations, okay, so where do I want to go? Hold on. Let me just say this. I'm going to digress one second. Tomorrow, June 14th, Jupiter is stationing retrograde, okay? And no, there is not a video on that because I'm going to be quite honest with you. Actually slipped my mind. Hey, it happens. So, but I want to talk about this because Jupiter stationing retrograde, Sagittarius is the rising sign of the USA's chart, so Jupiter represents the country. It's stationing retrograde in the nation's second house, and it's very close to the country's natal Pluto. So Jupiter represents the nation. It's in the second house. What does the second house rule in what we say is mundane astrology, right? The astrology, say, of nations or events. Well, it represents the treasury. It represents the national wealth, right? And financial institutions. And as I said, it's really close to Pluto. And Pluto in the country's chart rules the 12th house. So 12th house in the nation's chart, like in a personal chart, it does rule, it rules prisons, nursing homes, hospitals. It also rules health statistics, mental health statistics in particular, and any type of, well, let's say secret enemies, secret groups, enemies of the state. So what does this have to do also with Venus stationing retrograde? Well, to start with, we have the lesser fortune, which is Venus, and the greater fortune, which is Jupiter. We're going to have them both, right, retrograding. So in that sense alone, it's not the most, energetically, from the planet point of view, it may not be the most strongest point when we think of, oh, you know, prosperity. Okay, I don't really believe that, but I'm just going to say, but if I'm looking at it from an astrological point, we say, well, they're going back. So I'm just going to say, though, is it a point about reviewing abundance? Absolutely, right? And prosperity, that'll definitely go with. And so on May 17th or May 18th, depending on your time zone, while Jupiter is backpedaling through the nation's second house, again, of the national wealth, Venus retrograde is going to make a conjunction to Mars, to the USA's Mars in the 7th house. Okay, so 7th house in the country's chart, it represents lawsuits and protests against the nation. And it's against the government, and that can be any level, certainly as the president, and also it could be governors, it could be mayors. Now, Mars. So Mars, of course, it is a nation's ambition, their aggression, how assertive it is. But it also represents, well, the police, the military, okay? And in the nation's chart, Mars happens to rule the 4th house. Now, again, 4th house, country's chart. Well, it represents housing, it represents agriculture, and it represents we the people, okay? We the people. And so with Jupiter moving backwards in the nation's house of wealth, and especially that connection, I'm just going to say to Pluto, to things going on behind the scenes, when Venus conjuncts Mars, again, May 17th, May 18th, depending on where you are, can we expect, or will I be surprised if there isn't some, let me rephrase that. I won't be surprised if there is some type of conflict going on, some type of protest, not a little quiet protest, maybe it'll be a string of protests, organized protests, but I won't be surprised if there's some protests, could be connected to do with even connection maybe to the nursing homes or to hospitals, but there'll be something going on. We've got Venus, which is always rules the banks in a nation's chart, by the way. Just thought of that. And so does it mean the police are going to, be out in full force, or the military? Because actually Mars is associated with that as well. Not necessarily, but it just seems, just looking at the date and looking at the energy, just feel like something is going to be coming up and again, is connected to the people. Could be news connected to banks and mortgages or rents. All right. So it might be something actually positive. Maybe it won't be such a big protest. Maybe it'll just be some big news about some type of moratorium or some type of, I think some, right. What is it being promoted to suspend rent or something, or mortgage or something for a few months. So there might be something around that week of May 17th, May 18th. Just going to say to you to just keep an ear. Second date I do want to bring to your attention is June 11th. And on that date, Venus retrograde is going to conjunct Uranus in the nation's 6th house. Now, in a nation's chart, the 6th house, it's the workforce, it's employment, okay? It's employment statistics. It's your service industries, it's your medical personnel, it is civil servants, and actually military falls under the 6th house as well, and public health. right? Not going to forget that one, public health. So here we have Venus. It rules these, again, financial institutions. It is conjuncting Uranus, which in the mundane astrology, Uranus represents political and social revolutions that happen in the nation. So any type of protest, any type of civil obedience, any type of strikes. So keeping that in mind, and also Venus rules democracy. I mean, we're a republic in the US, but Venus rules democracy. Uranus is associated more with communism, with socialism. And so we're going to have this Venus-Uranus conjunction going on in the 6th house. And Uranus rules the 3rd house in the nation's chart. All right, so 3rd house, news, domestic news. So can we expect something to go on, some big news? Again, might be a protest, might be a big protest, or it just be some type of big political news may come out at that time. I would expect it to be connected, perhaps with the economy. Well, obviously the economy, but nation's chart, Venus rules the 6th house, the workforce, rules the 10th house, right? The government, the president. So it could turn out to be something really great. It could be that maybe there's more money coming out, more stimulus coming out, but on the other side, won't be surprised if there's some type of major protest going on. Again, if I'm wrong, I'd be happy, honestly, to be wrong, right? We don't want to see anything violent or anything like that, but it could be, but regular protest is okay. I support protests. You just don't want to see anything violent, right? And Uranus can be a little bit extreme. So that's what we want to really, that's why I bring that up. But on June 25th, Venus will station direct. It's going to station direct in the nation's 6th house. It'll go forward. And so at that point, it'll actually conjunct Uranus again on July 9th on direct motion. So just when I say keep an eye, or keep an ear and see what happens the first time that it actually conjuncts Uranus, because more than likely, whatever happens, right, whatever happens around that June 11th date will likely, be something similar. It'll be something similar or be revisited on July 9th. Okay, so let us talk about you, right? How does it influence you? So Venus is retrograding through the chart. Whatever house it's visiting in your horoscope is where there are going to be life areas that you're going to be examining, and you may be prioritizing, because when it comes to values, right, and I always say who and what's the most important to you, we all have our little bit of, right, our priorities, right? Who do we make time to see? Where do we actually find the money to buy something? So let us get started. And as usual, we are going to start with Aries. So if you are born under Aries, Venus is retrograding in your 3rd house, right? So there is a focus on communications and, well, side-by-side relationships, your neighbors, if you have siblings, cousins, but it's also your local, right, your local area, neighborhood, vehicles. So if we're looking at it from the point of view of Venus retrograde and examining it through values, how important are these type of relationships, all right? Whether they're siblings or neighbors, is it important to you to be involved in your local neighborhood? Could there be something going on that you need to take a closer look at? I mean, maybe they're building I don't know, they're putting up a new hotel or something. Well, at this time, I don't think they would be, right? Seriously, not hotels, but there could be something going on in your neighborhood that you may want to take another look at. You may be wondering, do I still want to continue to live in this area? Now, when it comes also to the relationships, and whether it's neighbors or siblings or cousins, you may be looking at them and thinking, maybe you want to get closer to them, because Venus is about relationships, right? Maybe you need to withdraw from them. But again, Venus is social, so is Gemini. So how important is what I'm going to say to you, because it's a social sign. The biggest takeaway from this period for you might be how much or maybe you'll be surprised, not as much, you need to be connected to other people. Okay, so keep that in, that's what I would say, is to keep that in mind. I'm just going to mention cars, vehicles, because Venus is being retrograde, not like Mercury being retrograde, but I am going to say to you, if there's an issue with a car, with a vehicle, with some type of transportation, and you need to make a purchase while Venus is retrograde, just do be sure that all your warranties, right? All the warranties are in order. And because again, you may be tempted to say, "I'll spend a little extra money," if you have it, but it's a big ticket item if it's not a necessity. Okay, if you don't have to do it now, for a lot of you, it might be because, again, you may not be wanting to be taking, public transportation. I'm just going to say to you, really do your research, really do your comparison shopping, okay? Now, if you are born under Taurus, so if you're born under Taurus, now Venus is retrograding in your second house. So where's that focus? It's material security. What are you looking at? Well, it's how much importance, I'm going to say, that maybe you put on your possessions, on physical possessions, and what value, what is your attitude, what is your value when it comes to money? What value do you place on yourself? All right. All of the Venus retrograde themes that are going on that we're all dealing with are actually much more intensified, frankly, for you if Venus is retrograding in your second house. And again, given the current circumstances, for some of you, issues connected to money or uncertainty about money or savings, it may just be a little bit more prominent, in your life now. Hopefully not. But again, second house, think about it. It's money, it's savings, and it could be that reflection of, you know what? I need to budget more. I want to have more saved away, saved in case something happens. I know I've got a nest egg. Now, if you're born under Gemini, right? Venus is retrograding in Gemini. So it is retrograding in your first house. Where's the focus? Where's the emphasis? It's the physical self. And physical self, well, it's the first impression that you make. It's your attitude. It's your approach to life. And I'm just going to say it's your image, right? In some ways, it's not the public image like the 10th house, but it's body image, certainly body image. But you could be reviewing, or it's a good time to reflect on your approach to life. Now, maybe you go out and you grab life by the horns. Maybe you're very optimistic. Are you too optimistic? Are you fearful? Are you hesitant? These are just some areas to reflect on, I'm going to say. And with your body, besides having a healthy body image, physical body is always connected to health, right? So just look at that. And again, do you put too much, do you put too much emphasis or too little emphasis maybe on physical appearance? All right, that's something to consider. And the attitude towards life, well, how do you approach things? Do you go out there with confidence, or do you have a fear of being rejected? So that's something, again, that to be considered during this time. Now, if you're born under Cancer, Venus is retrograding, in your 12th house. All right. So the 12th house, there's a focus, I'm going to say to you, on karma, on emotional patterns. So it's a time to reflect on, do you have patterns in your life where you have been, you find yourself being victimized, maybe a different situation, but sort of the same outcome? Do you sell yourself short? Do you sell yourself short in relationships? Do you sell yourself short when it comes to money? Okay, because 12th house is associated with selflessness, and selflessness is something, listen, we all need a certain degree of selflessness, right? We also, though, need a certain degree of selfishness or self-interest. So this is a good time while Venus is going through the 12th house to look at it. Now, 12th house is considered a creative house, so you might go back to, maybe you were interested in some creative form. 12th house, Neptune, dancing, could be music. That could be, it could be revived. But 12th house is also spiritual. And so it might be a time to really reflect on spirituality. Is it important in your life? It doesn't have to be important for everyone, right? I mean, not judging here, but how important is it? And do you need a little bit more of it? Do you need to devote more time to it? And just to consider that and perhaps explore that. Now, if you are born under Leo, Venus is retrograding in your 11th house. So where's this focus? Well, it is your hopes and your goals, right? It's on hopes and goals. So it makes sense. You look at where you are, what you want to achieve. Have things changed? Can you still go in that direction? Do you need to pivot? But the other side of it is, we talk about casual relationships or group relationships. So it might be a time to actually consider, how much do you value Okay. Teamwork. How much do you value community, a sense of community? And just review your values in terms of, you know, what are your feelings in different forms of social justice, right? That's 11th house. Could even be politics. But overall, with that 11th house in the group relationships, it's also a social house. And so you too might be reflecting on saying, wow, during this period, I'm going to say during the lockdown, were you okay? Did you enjoy your own company? Or did you find, wow, I really missed, I really missed going out with people or meeting people, and just look at that and see what you need more of, what you need less of. And if it's an issue or an ongoing issue, it's something to consider how you can resolve it in terms of, whether it's on, online communities or something of that nature. Okay. But if you're born under Virgo, it is I was going to say to you, it's a different story, right? Because Virgo, got to count this in my head. Okay, if you're born under Virgo, Venus is retrograding through your 10th house. So where's the focus? Well, certainly the career, the calling, the life path. And on the one hand, of course, we can say, well, how important it is to you. But the thing is this, the 10th house is also about achievement. It's about fame. It's about honors. And think about values in that. Is that something that's important to you? And not just important, and when I say it's important to be recognized, don't mean that in an egotistical way, Virgo. It may be that you're looking at the values and you might realize, you know what? I haven't really cared that much about being, getting awards or being recognized or being, employee of the month. And you might look at it and say, you know what? Maybe I need to, or maybe that's, if I want that promotion, maybe I need to get in front of people, get attention, because the 10th house is the public house. It's right. It's what we present. It's what people see. It is also the house of authority, right? Authority figures, our bosses, our parents. And so you may also be honestly examining authority in some respects. And it could actually have to do with a parent, right? Your relationship with a parent, maybe you haven't seen them in a while and you may say, wow, I really miss them. Maybe looking at it and saying, you know what, God, with this lockdown, we're living together, it's too close, as an example. But the point is, it really is about evaluating, right? Evaluating those type of things, and also respect. I want to mention that because 10th house, when we talk about authority, and I'm going to put respect in there, is how do you view authority? Do you feel if I just get the position, the respect comes with it? Do you feel that, someone's got a position, they have to earn it? So that's something you might be thinking about. And again, it's really is value driven. Now, Libra, if you're born under Libra, Venus is retrograding in your 9th house. So 9th house, higher learning, higher knowledge, it's belief systems. So Venus retrograding here, what do you believe in? Okay, what are your personal values connected to, to education? Is a degree or do you view education as a degree, right? As college or a master's or a PhD? Or do you think it's overrated, right? Do you think it's overrated? And in terms of value systems, because this is a little different. We talk about religion, philosophy. What are your values when it is connected to justice, to philanthropy, to helping other people? All right. So that is something to think about. And also, you know what? 9th house, because it's ruled by Sagittarius, is the house, I like to think of it as the house of adventure, right? It's the house of adventure. So that might be something that you're thinking about, because do you need more adventure in your life? Do you value it as an important to you? And have you done done justice for yourself with adventure? Or is it something that, maybe you could do with less adventure, right? Maybe you need to look at a little bit more safety. And what else? Is something else I was thinking of? Oh, integrity. So 9th house is connected to integrity, to honesty. And in terms of values, that might be something to reflect on for the people in your life as well as for you. How much do you value honesty and integrity? And I know it seems like, oh, of course, everyone values it. And to be honest with you, I think we all value it in someone else. We want everyone to have integrity that we deal with. We want everyone to be honest. But, do we tell white lies, right? How honest always are we? So that might be something, point of reflection. And then next we have Scorpio. So Scorpio, Venus is retrograding in your hold on here. Yeah, in your eighth house. How to think on that? I thought that doesn't make sense. No, of course, Scorpio, Venus is retrograding in your eighth house, right? Sign that's the house that you naturally rule. But where is the focus? So I'm going to say Venus retrograding in the eighth house. I am going to start with transformation, because transformation is more than just change, right? We change, we modify things. But in true transformation, something very often dies, right? And something new takes its place. So transformation is connected, I'm going to say, to personal growth. All right. So during this time, Scorpio, when it comes to personal growth, how important is that to you? And what are you willing to do to achieve it? What are you willing, maybe even to give up to achieve it? It's also eighth house, trust, right? Trust, intimacy, shared resources, which to me, both of those, right, are connected to trust. And again, how trustworthy are you? How trustworthy are the people in your life? And it's a time to review. It's a time to reflect on that. And really, quite frankly, I hate to use the word judge, but to decide, are the people in your life, do they hit the mark or not? Or there's some people that maybe you shouldn't be confiding in, you shouldn't be sharing things with. And for your own self as well, it is sort of a time, it's interesting, the glyph of Venus is a mirror, right? So sometimes we all have to look in the mirror, and as we're judging other people or questioning these things and say, hey, how do I measure up? Now, Sagittarius. So if you are born under Sagittarius, let's see, Venus is retrograding, well, your seventh house. So where's the focus? Relationships, important relationships, committed relationships. It could be marriage-like relationships, your best friends, actually includes adversaries. It's relationships that you have a vested interest in, okay? But it's also, well, let's just say this is certainly the time, right, to review them. And as I said, to these people, who lifts you up, who brings you down, right? Who makes you feel like $1,000,000, and who makes you feel like crap, quite frankly. So it's time to make the decisions. Don't make the decisions now. Make it when Venus goes, after Venus goes direct. But it is time to look at, what do you value in a relationship? What do you need in a relationship? Really, what do you need for it to succeed? How much attention do you need, quite frankly, or how much space do you need? And it's also, seventh house is partnership, but it could be professional, like collaboration. So how much do you value collaboration? Or maybe you like to work on your own. It's a house of fairness. It's a house of justice. And that's something else. Where do you stand on fairness and justice? Are you a hypocrite? Seriously, what is that going? How's it going? Is it, it's perfect for other people, but it's not good enough for you, So it's something to consider in that respect as well. Because that seventh house, like I say, it is this house of, we think of love and peace and these happy relationships, but it is adversarial, it is adversarial as well. So we look at both sides of it. So when it comes to competitors, how do you feel about competition? You might value it, right? Because it may be something that where you can feel driven to compete with someone. Are you doing it just because you got to beat them? Or are you doing it because honestly, it's just making you strive higher? It's not to take away from them or beat them, but it's like, wow, look at that. I never realized that. I'm going to aspire to that. And so Capricorn. Capricorn. Venus is retrograding in your sixth house. Work, health, pets. It's also the house of self-improvement, right? Because the sixth house is the natural, right, house of Virgo. And so let's start with work. In terms of reviewing things with work, of course, obviously your work. Are you happy with the work that you do? Do you value your work? Do you need to find, new work? But also, what is your work ethic? Seriously, what is your work ethic? Are you there? Do you show up? Do you give them, really their money's worth? Do you give them too much for their money? Honestly, do you give them too little? So it's something to consider there. And also health. So let's talk about health. And especially, health and work in today's environment. How do you feel about going back to your job? If you work in an office, let's say, and your state or city is opening up and it's like, hey, you can come back. How do you feel about it? Or how do you think you're going to feel about it? About whatever measures are going to come, all jokes aside, going in, having your temperature taken, whatever it is, these safety measures. Think about that. Do you think they have value? Do you think they don't? Honestly, if those are the measures and you want to work, I don't think you'd have a choice anyway, but it is something just to consider. All right. So for example, and let's say, I don't know, just for argument's sake, if you're a teacher, you're in education, you're going to be going back to school. Maybe you're teaching home online. Well, if you're near retirement age and you don't like it, you might be thinking, you know what? I think, I'll give somebody else a job. So also wanted to mention daily routine. Also, exercise. So your routine, that might be something to reflect upon, as well, because do you need to change it up during, especially again, in light of this time, you may be doing fine. You may realize that, what, if there's another lockdown or it happens again, I need a different routine. I need a different network. I need to connect more with people. And this self-improvement part, yeah, is we can all improve, right? It's not just you. I'm not being personal here, but it might be something where you may look and say, I need to improve something. And it could be your physical health. It could be, hey, you know what? I need to exercise. I need to change my diet. Things really just as simple as that. Aquarius, if you are born under Aquarius, Venus is retrograding in your 5th house. So 5th house, the house of pleasure, right? That's the focus. It's pleasure. It's fun. What is fun to you, right? Do you have enough of it? Also children, it's romance. So when I say a time of reflecting how much or how much you value fun. I mean, to some degree, we all value fun, but it may be a time of sort of looking at it through a different, sort of a different lens, because depending on what you enjoy, if you enjoyed, let's say concerts. I'm just going to say concerts, anything like these big, right, stadiums, or going to, I don't know, the football game or something. It may be something to reflect on, just because times are changing. And how important is it to you? Are you going to really miss it that much? Are you going to be happy to stream? Do you maybe have to find some other interests to sort of fill a little bit of a void? Okay. And also, how much stock do you put in socializing? Now, Aquarius, honestly, as a sign, it could be, if we talk about group relationships, and it's pretty, social, even if it's kind of casual, but still on the social level of entertainment and laughing, because 5th house is fun, and that includes laughter. So how important is it? All right. Have you been too isolated? And also romance. So here, if Venus is retrograding through the 5th house, well, you may be more focused on a romantic relationship. If there's something going on, you may be evaluating that and saying, is this, how does it measure up? Is this something I want to go forward with? Or is this something that I think, it was fun, it was Mr. or Ms. right now, but that's really all it is. And again, I'm going to say to you, wait until Venus goes direct to actually really execute any decisions. All right. And because usually if we end something while Venus is retrograde, it's usually temporary and we go back again. And most of the time may break up again, but wait till the energy goes direct. But you might also be looking at the relationships and saying, if you're not in a relationship, how much do I want romance? And again, what am I willing to do for it? Normally we meet people at work, we meet people at school. And so it may be a time of seriously reviewing, are you willing? And that's what I'm going to say, how important, how much does it matter? Are you willing to maybe go on that internet or do apps or whatever? And so it's just something to consider, okay? And last, never least, is Pisces. So if you're born under Pisces, well, Venus is retrograding in your 4th house. So 4th house, home, family, right? Pretty clear cut there. But in terms of a focus or a spotlight on your home, it's also emotional security, right? So I'm going to say how important during this time, how important is it for you to put down roots, okay? How important is it to you, or how much do you value, I should say, your family, your tribe? And seriously, with a family, it's something to look at because it's a relationship. Do they make you feel great? Is there anyone who diminishes you? If there is, it's time to really think about that and consider how you're going to address it. All right? When we talk about home, we're also talking about property. We're talking about real estate. So again, it may be a time when you're considering your living circumstances. Are you interested in buying? Are you thinking about, hey, maybe I might sell, maybe I need to relocate my home? All right. It is a parental house. How do you feel about your parents? How do you feel about your relationship with your parents? And again, there might be issues that you might say, at this time, it might be time to address them. And it could be that it's an absolutely wonderful relationship, and yay, right? That's really great. But the fourth house is as I said, it's sort of a foundational house. So it really comes down to emotional security. Now, emotional security takes in a lot because it also takes in, to be emotionally secure, you usually need to be financially secure. So that will still bring in a little bit more of the money side, I'm just going to say, for you. So born into Cancer in the fourth house, the other thing, it is an intuitive house. Do want to mention that. It is also connected to, we say, to agriculture, to gardening. And so that might be something that during this time, if you were interested, you might revive it if you haven't, or it may be, you may start to look at it and think, hey, maybe I want to garden. Maybe you'll get a new interest from it, even though I know it's Venus retrograde and we're reviewing things, but I'm just going to say about value and does it matter to you, it's something to look at in terms of, when I say gardening, I'm actually not thinking of flowers. I was really thinking of like vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And so in that sense, I'm just going to say, when thinking about food, how much value is it in terms of the food that you get? All right. Whether it's genetically engineered, just for example, you could be valuing things like that at this time and thinking, you know what? I think I'm going to, I don't know, plant my own garden. And going to leave you with that. And so overall, though, I do want to say with the Venus retrograde period, it is always about values. And that's why I say, whether it's our relationships, whether it's our money, whether it's our possessions, it really comes down to the valuing, how much we value them, and the priority of what and who means the most to you. All right. And so that wraps up, Venus retrograde. And I'll be back here with another video. I'll be back here with a weekly forecast. By the weekend, I'll be there. So until then, have a great time, have a great day, and may Jupiter's blessings be your constant companion. Oh, and hey, if you like it, right, please like it, leave a comment. It's really helpful. And of course, subscribe. All right. Thank you. Take care. Now I just have to figure out how to end this again. There we go.